Hey guys, if you're shopping for knives and gear, make sure you check out the description of the video you're watching right now for links to some great online retailers. There's also individual links for knives that I personally recommend. Thanks!
What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got another interesting knife review slash knife overview to share with you guys. This is the BRS E-Volve Nomad, a very interesting, chunky knife. So they sent me this. They actually reached out to me on Instagram and said, hey, would you like to check out some of our stuff? And I said, yeah, absolutely. I'll take a look at it. And I open this up, and I have a weird soft spot for what I consider to be unnecessarily chunky knives. This isn't overly like to the point where it's like, you know, like Medford insane overbuilt. But it has this interesting appeal to it, and I carried this around for a couple of days, and I just kind of have this odd connection with it, and I found that I do really enjoy it. I'm going to give it the regular Metal Complex treatment, the regular Metal Complex review. I don't know why I'm stuttering all around that. But, yeah, this is cool. There is a version of this that's available right now, a couple of different variants. You can check the description if you want to check out this knife and actually BRS E-Volve knives in general. This knife is made in China, so if that's okay with you, right, then great. If it's not, then it's not. It just is what it is. Let's go ahead, and I want to thank my generous patrons for supporting me right now. If you'd like to get your hands on some cool stickers and other benefits, there is, of course, a link right down in the description. You're supporting me in the world to me. And please follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. Seriously. Okay, let's go ahead and do a measurement here. The overall length of the BRS Nomad coming in at just about 7.5 inches overall, which is cool because it feels like a much larger knife than it actually is. Blade length is coming in at 3 1/4. Cutting edge is coming in at about 3 inches on the dot. Let's go ahead and do some size comparisons up against the Ontario Rat Model 1. Rat 1 is coming in at 8.6 inches overall. So you can see there the presence is of a larger knife, but it's just not very long. About medium size. Up against the PM2. PM2 coming in at 8.3 inches overall. How about up against the Benchmade Griptilian, or in this case the Ritter Hogue? Ritter Hogue comes in at about 8 inches overall. How about up against the Spyderco Para 3? Spyderco Para 3 coming in at 7 1/4. So a little longer than the Para 3, a little shorter than the Grip or Ritter Hogue. And last but not least, the Benchmade Mini Griptilian. Mini Griptilian coming in at about 6.75 inches overall. How's the action on this guy? This knife is running on bearings, and it is delightfully smooth. It's not completely fall shut, but the action's great. And I can access this little thumb hole slot thing. You can sort of wheel it open, right? You can, if you get it just right, you can flick it open. You're kind of running into this area right here, right? But just pinch opening it, wheeling it open, or if you want to do the reverse flick, you can do it. It's got a curiously heavier than I would have expected detents for a knife like this, but it works, right? And it's nice to feel the click when it goes into place. No detent, lash, wiggle, or anything like that. Very solid on lockout. Very easy to access this large area right here where you've got the pretty exceptionally thick steel liner lock. But I kind of like that. You know, truthfully, what was the Les George ZT? Was it the 0909 or the 0808? I can't remember. The one that was based on the Talos. Very similar. G10, steel, and S35VN, and a very chunky construction. I liked that knife, right? I mean, a lot of people fault it for those you know, qualities or those attributes. Sorry, moving the pad back up. But I kind of, there's this odd appeal to it, right? Is it in excess? Does it need to be that thick? No. It's kind of neat that it is, right? Especially at the price point, which we're going to talk about. Action on this guy's great. I don't have a problem with it. It's very comfortable. You can play with this knife, you know, just flip it in and out over and over and over again, which is cool, considering how chunky it is, right? There's no hot spots or anything like that on an engagement and disengagement. It's just, it's nice, and it feels very tanky, you know, when it's deployed. Let's go ahead and, or when it locks out. Let's go ahead and do carry profile. I'll give you an example of thickness. Thickness up against the Spyderco Para 3. Yeah, this is, it's very thick. Absolutely. Let's do height and length up against two knives that have awkward carry profiles and nobody seems to complain about. PM2 and Para 3. Length and height. It's shorter and, you know, it's not as long and it's not as tall as either of them, right? It's just substantially thicker than both. Put these guys like this, right? It's just a meaty tank of a knife, right? So that's going to be the issue for a lot of people. The length of it, right? I mean, most people don't have a problem with a 7.5-inch knife, but in some areas it's going to be illegal. You know, that blade length's going to be illegal. The length, you know, I mean, in terms of like, if you're just looking at it this way, you're not considering, you know, it three-dimensionally, I guess, then yeah, it's fine. It's just the thickness is definitely going to bother some people. The blade stock isn't ridiculously thick. Most of the thickness comes from the scales. I want to say the blade is probably 150 thousandths. Let's see if I'm right. Yeah, 150, 155 thousandths, about what I'd expect, right? Materials, we are looking at S35VN, G10. We have some titanium in here. Backspacer, pivot collar, right? That's kind of cool. Pocket clip, I think, is steel. Maybe it's titanium. Yeah, the pocket clip's titanium too. Liners are definitely steel, right? So an interesting combination of materials. Let's go ahead and take a look at the inside. You can pick up my flashlight down in the description. There is some milling in there, which is great because this thing would be stupidly heavy if it did not have that internal milling. Let's go ahead and weigh it. Get out my scale here. I'm going to guess this is 5.5 ounces. Okay, 5.15 ounces. Yeah, that's definitely going to be too heavy for some people considering the length of it, right? This still falls within. My thing is profile and weight. So this is thick, but it's kind of like charmingly thick. It is probably going to be too thick for most people, though, I'll admit that, right? But thickness for me is okay. Weight for me is okay. It's definitely over that 4-ounce mark, definitely over the 1.5-inch mark, right? If you've been carrying the Para 3, lightweight, and bug out, not going to be your thing. If you've been carrying heavier full-size knives, though, and you work outside, you know, jeans and whatever, and you carry a bunch of other stuff, you're not gonna notice this. Right? It's just not going to be the case. Let's go ahead and get let's do the hardware check. Get out my tools here. As usual, my tools are very recommendable. You can find them all down in the description. A couple of inexpensive options and a more expensive option for those of you who want to check it out. I'm going to guess that's T8. Yeah, pivot's T8, and I don't even need to check it. The rest of these screws are T6. They also curiously hold down the scale on top of the liner, and then there's probably a couple more screws holding in the backspacer, which I don't really like that. They should have just used 2 screws back here like all the other companies and just held everything together with those 2 screws. Because now you have even more probably T6 screws underneath. I think that's kind of unnecessary, and it also kind of looks funny to have screws in the middle of the scale. Not a deal breaker, right? T6, I don't like it. I wish it was all T8. I don't like excess hardware. Still not a deal breaker. Just be careful. You got a lot of screws if you're going to take this thing apart, but it is what it is, right? All right, let's go ahead and talk about the anatomy, profile, and everything like that. This is Peel Ply Textured G10. Not super aggressive, though. Just grippy enough to where you feel like you can feel it, right? But it is nicely knocked down everywhere. This thing looks kind of like an angular brick, like you would really feel the corners, but no, it's actually really, really nicely knocked down. It's also comfortable. In all of these positions, even up here, this is comfortable, right? There's one area that bothers me, and it's the tip of that pocket clip. Gosh dang it. This pocket clip does not go with this knife at all. It's pointy and skinny and just weird. I mean, just a wider, simple pocket clip would have been great. And then this area down here, if it was less pointy and more rounded and wider, right, it wouldn't have been an issue. The depth, it's a little bit shallow, right? Maybe this could have been moved up a little bit. In fact, I really wish that it was. But I wish the pocket clip was different completely. That's the one hot spot on this knife. Everywhere else, you are locked in. You can get a full 4-finger grip on this guy, especially if you choke up, which is awesome. This thing just feels like an absolute tank in the hand. Some knives, I pick them up and I'm like, this is like a knife that I want to play with, right? This is a knife that I want to admire for all of the finish work, or this is a knife that I want to take out and use. I can't explain exactly why, but I don't know it until I pick it up. This knife, as soon as I pick it up, I'm like, oh my gosh, I just want to go like press this blade into wood and just really bear down on it. That's how I feel about this. And I think knives that are using similar materials and the similar price range, right? When they have good ergonomics and they feel the hand like this thing just feels like such a little chunky tank beast, and that mega aggressive Tanto, which actually is good for, I found that, I prefer the Tanto in some situations when I'm outside working and I need a versatile blade that can scrape and cut and in some cases pry, right, breach or puncture, whatever. A Tanto can be pretty good for that, right? But a lot of different blades can be good for a lot of different stuff. It's just how I feel. I pick this up and I'm like, oh yeah, let's go to work, right? That's what it feels like to me. Big fan of how they did the opening hole right here. They have knocked the corners down, which means no matter how you engage it, it's very friendly with your fingers, very easy to do the reverse flick, and it's very satisfying. There's a lot of weight and mass coming out, and it clicks into place, and it just feels... Missed it there. Just feels good locking that thing out, right? Really, really like that. The jimping up here is pretty aggressive. It's definitely going to lock your finger in. If you're bearing down on this thing with your bare hands, yeah, you're gonna, the indentions on your thumb, definitely. If I was really gonna work hard with a knife though, I would be using gloves, right? Holding it like this, very comfortable, right? You can choke up, right? You're gonna be fine. But without gloves, that's definitely gonna tear into your hands. I think that was definitely intentional, right? They intended for people to use this heavily. This area up here is tumbled, the swedge, so this area is knocked down. We have a satin flat, which the contrast is nice, right? I honestly kind of appreciate it. The blade is just a ridiculously aggressive tanto. And so what we have down here behind the edge is about medium thick, right? I'm definitely not going to call this thin. This is fairly thick behind the edge. Up here, it's very thick, right? Now, you can look at that different ways, right? For people who shave grapes on a daily basis, yeah, you're not going to appreciate that edge geometry. I would say go for the open L. That's going to be more your style. For people who, you know, are really banging around and beating on their knives, right, and they're not really concerned with the amount of drag that saves them 0.2 seconds per cut, right? They're just needing a knife to kind of cut and pry and puncture and move, do a bunch of, you're going to throw this thing around and beat on it, right? Then yeah, you might appreciate a little bit of extra thickness, and I think S35VN, you know, couples well if you're gonna do a blade like this, right? But yeah, this isn't gonna be a performance cutter. This is basically a sharpened wedge that you can use for a lot of different things, and is gonna be more at home in an environment where the user is really gonna be tossing around and using it for whatever, right? You've got two pretty straight edges. Honestly, the edges are pretty equal in length, right? So sharpening this guy and moving to this guy, it's not fun to have to adjust and sharpen two different edges. And you can see here, we actually have this rise. This is intentional. This change in the, you know, not the angle, but just like how far it actually goes out to, you know, the cutting edge, where it starts, where the cutting bevel starts, right? It changes. I think it would have been substantially thicker out here at the tip had they not done that. But I do appreciate that you have a ridiculous amount of excess durability all the way out to the tip. This is a blade that I would be very confident if I had to do something outside of the realm of normal with a knife. Yeah, I would appreciate that blade. Now, am I saying that, you know, if you use this thing for whatever, right, if you know, put it in a clamp and use it like a diving board, right, and it breaks, that they're going to cover that? No, use it like a knife. But I'd feel a little bit more confident with this versus, let's say, the PM2. Definitely a more performance-oriented blade shape, right, for your cutting and things like that. But, you know, which blade is going to hold up to abuse better? Definitely this guy, by a mile. It just depends on what your usage habits are, right? So trying to cater this review to people who I think will appreciate this more, that's what it is, right? But, you know, for those of you who really need your cutting geometry to just be absolutely perfect, you need the sliceiest, you know, this or that, this isn't going to be your cup of tea. But yeah, anyways, the blade is cool. Not going to be for everybody, but the blade is really, really cool. I like it. The liners are just ridiculously thick, but I kind of like that. They did a nice job here. The liners are tumbled, right? They match up with the scales. I like this little area down here where they've done a little bit of extra milling just for fun, right? They kind of put some extra lines in here up on the G10, right? Just to kind of break up the simple look of everything. I also really, really like the bronze. I'm a big fan of bronze and black contrast. I think that looks nice. They threw some titanium on there to kind of help out, because otherwise you'd be looking at just G10 steel for the line, G10 for the scales, steel for the liners, and S35VN. It's nice that they threw some titanium elements in there to make you feel a little bit better about the price and to add some color in, right? And there's different versions of this. There's different color setups, different colors of G10, things like that. So that's cool. They did a great job of the backspacer. Again, the backspacer I think should come more like around to here, and we should have had, you know, or actually if they're gonna leave it like this, right, just screw here and screw here, and both be, you know, T8 on both sides, and then you don't have to have screws here, and you don't have to have screws underneath. I don't know why they did it like that. It holds everything together just fine, right? It's just, it's weird. Pocket clip, don't like it at all. Don't like it. Doesn't look like it goes with a knife. It carries a little bit shallow. I mean, it'll hold the knife to your pants, right? Just don't like this pokey area right here. It doesn't fight you too bad over the seam. It's ramped up, so it's, you know, it's gonna conform to whatever pocket you're trying to shove it over, right? I just don't like it. It's just I don't like skinny little clips, especially on such a tank of a knife. Golly, this thing just needed a bigger pocket clip, you know. Anyways, you know, this side much the same as the front, right? It's left-handed only. Liner lock. There's no mount position on the other side. The knife locks up at about, what is that, 35-40%. Very easy to disengage, no lock stick, very smooth on the way down, and it is absolutely completely centered. It also has a very deep nested stop pin in there, and there's a little bit of where it's actually contacting, it's rounded, right? So that's nice. The fact that it's steel and we've got rounding on the stop pin means that it's going to slow wear down over time. Very solid, unbelievably solid, no question of lockup strength whatsoever, right? Is this as strong as a triad lock? Probably not. I don't know why I still have to say that, right? But Cold Steel fans always feel like if he doesn't admit that it's not as strong as a triad lock, I'm going to have words with him. Whatever. But is this going to be, I mean, is the blade geometry, is it going to be tough enough for those types of tasks? Is the lock going to be strong enough for what you would reasonably throw at it, right? Yeah, sure it is, right? If you are going to be using your knife as a diving board or a sledgehammer, or you're going to be scaling a building with it, you should probably use the triad lock. But for everybody else doing normal things with their knives, no, you don't need that much. I like Cold Steel knives and I like the triad lock, but just I'd be honest about it. But anyways, this knife comes in about 136 bucks, which, yeah, I think that's a great price. I don't have a problem with that at all. I really like the price. What I don't like about this is mainly the pocket clip. I honestly could overlook pretty much everything else if the pocket clip was different. The pocket clip I just don't like. Pointy and skinny and weird. Other little issues, again, we've got T6 screws. We've got 2 here, likely 2 more underneath, which I think is unnecessary. Could have just been T8, 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 T8 and be done with it, right? The blade, I think, is cool. It's definitely going to be too thick for some people, right? It's a Tanto, which, again, I think is cool, and it's definitely tough. It's going to be very versatile in an environment where you're really going to be throwing it around and beating on it. But, again, it's not going to be for everybody, and it's going to be more difficult to sharpen than a blade like this, right? Or like this. It's just, that's going to be the case, right? It's going to be thick behind the edge, which is going to work better for some people, or some people just aren't going to care, and it's certainly not going to be preferable for other people. The main reason to pick this up is that it's just oddly charming in this chunky little, it's like a short little bodybuilder. It's such a little beast of a knife, but they did it really well, and it's solid, and it locks up really well, and it feels good. Everything feels, you know, what I'd expect, and it's fun to play with. And, you know, yeah, it would unquestionably hold up to probably some pretty serious abuse. I like this knife. I think it's cool. I think I can recommend this knife for the price. S35VN, a little bit of titanium, G10 and steel, and it's got some extra charming chunkiness to it, right? It's not going to be for everybody. I can recommend it to people who, you know, look at this and go, I could see value in that. I could see a use for it in my day-to-day life, right? And I like how it looks. I think that that's going to be who I'm going to recommend this knife to. So I'm going to put it on my most recommended knives playlist, but I just want to be clear. I'm not saying that it's necessarily for everybody. As is the case with any knife that I review on this channel, it's not necessarily for anybody. But if you're wondering, is this a quality-made product? Does it bring you joy, right? Do you think it's a good, you know, group of materials, a good ergonomic design, overall profile for the money that you're paying for it? Sure. It's just not going to be for everybody. So yeah, very, very cool. And thanks again to BRS. I should point out the case that it comes in is awesome. Let me move this real quick. This is a really nice padded, I like this a lot. And it's just a nice, I mean, you're already getting a good deal on a knife, truthfully, 136 bucks. Yeah, compared to the other things I review on this channel, yeah, this is a great deal in my opinion. But it's just a nice little cherry on top. They give you a really high quality padded case. I was really impressed with that. I like how they did the, you know, the Evolve logo there, and I like the little padding on the inside. It's just nice, you know? Not like it needs to sleep in a luxury bed every single knife, but I appreciate that they send that extra pouch there. That's cool. Guys, I think that's going to be pretty much it. You can check this knife out down in the description, as well as BRS E-Volve knives in general, see what they've got available. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.